Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk and welcome back to the 15th Slimekeep Devlog. In this devlog I worked on a minimap, fog of war effect, and a few other pretty neat things, so let's get into it. First up, I started working on the minimap. Thankfully, Andre, the creator of the procedural generation asset that I use, had been working on a minimap to be a feature of the asset in the new version, so I backed up my game, installed the new version, and boom, I was left with tons of errors. Most of these errors were due to changes in namespaces, so I had to spend tons of hours going through my scripts and changing around the namespaces and references to get things working. I then tried generating a level, and as you can see, things are not going too smoothly. This was a problem with the order of tile maps, so I got back to work with the fix, and eventually, after many headaches and struggles, I got the level pretty much back to normal, and mostly everything was working. I then checked out the minimap scene example, and the minimap looked pretty neat, and you can see the player can move around the level, and the minimap will show exactly where the player is. Now that I knew a bit of how the minimap worked, I started adding the components of it to my scene. This was super simple to set up, and after only a few minutes I had a camera that would render to a render texture, and that was the minimap. However, this just looked weird, and what I wanted to make was a more simplified view of the minimap that is used in practically every game with the minimap. Thankfully, all I had to do was a few clicks, and now there was a basic simplified minimap view. However, this is not perfect as it sort of broke my game again, and the minimap wouldn't render the corridor walls for some reason. I made some changes, and now those issues were fixed, though of course with game development, once you fix a problem, another problem will arise, and that problem was that I wanted the minimap to render the obstacles/structures inside of rooms. But for some completely random reasons, certain places in the level wouldn't show these obstacles on the minimap, but other places would. I spent days trying to figure this out, and I was completely lost, as the issue made no sense to me. So I decided to email Andre, and he got back to me the next day with a new minimap system that thankfully fixed the issue. Now, the minimap was starting to look like a real minimap. Though taking a quick break from the minimap, I realized I accidentally somehow lost a lot of work on my Slimebook from a weird commit in GitHub, so I took some time to get the Slimebook back to normal, which was a bit of pain, but it only took a few hours. And if you ignore the minimap and the weird page flipping glitch, the book was pretty much back to normal. Alright, back to the minimap, and I had another problem. It was that every tile in the minimap was a perfect square, and the problem was that not everything in my tile set is a perfect square. To fix this, I yet again got the help of Andre, and he came through with another version of the minimap that was much more customizable and had some really neat settings. Now every tile was its exact size, and here's what it looked like. I thought the obstacles or structures inside the rooms looked a bit better, though I didn't really like the walls, so I kinda scrapped that later, but let me know what you think. I also tried adding this outline to the obstacles, but I also didn't really like how that turned out, so I scrapped that. I then added this icon to the player, which is pretty neat and was very simple to set up, as I just have a child of the player that only gets rendered by the minimap camera. I did the same for a bunch of other things like different shopkeepers and the house by making some custom sprites. But before I continue with the video, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is a jam held every few months where contestants have 72 hours to create a game from scratch, and then streamers will play the top few games. It's a really fun experience, and the 8th Squarespace Game Jam was actually my first game jam that I ever entered, and I ended up winning that jam, so I definitely recommend checking it out. I think game jams are a super good way of improving your game creation skills, and are just overall pretty fun. The next jam starts on January 1st, and the link is in the description if you're interested. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Next up, I made a very simple minimap border that may not be final, but I think it looks okay for now, and sorry about that box in the top right. But still, let me know what you think. It's super simple, but I think it looks okay. I also added this fog of war effect that was included in the new version of the asset that is super simple, but really cool looking in my opinion, and I can customize it a ton and do all these different kinds of settings, so let me know what you think on that also. But yet again, there's another problem. I couldn't get post-processing effects on my minimap UI for some complex reason that I won't get into right now. And also, sometimes the fog of war effect would cover up my UI. Andre suggested that I create a camera that only renders UI and stack that camera on top of my main camera. I tried doing this, but I couldn't find a way to overlay one camera on top of another, and I could really only render one camera at a time, regardless of all the things I tried. I heard of a feature called camera stacking, but I thought that was released in Unity 2020, and I really didn't want to have to upgrade my project. Though actually, as it turns out, it was added to a new version of Unity 2019.3 in the Universal Render Pipeline 7.3, so all I really had to do was upgrade my project, so I did that, and thankfully nothing broke, and now I could stack cameras, which is pretty neat and really easy to set up. This solved the issue of adding post-processing and making sure that the UI is always on top of everything else, which is awesome. Alright, we're finally done talking about the minimap and fog of war, so let's get into a few other gameplay changes. A pretty major thing I did was change it so slimes grow after only one jump. There used to be 3, but I felt like they took forever to grow and the gameplay is just way too slow. I'll just really have to see how the gameplay feels when I start playtesting, but this is just a change I think was pretty needed, or something similar. Next up, I started working on a chest. My plan was for this chest to drop after you kill a boss, and the chest would drop some slime balls and a special item at the end. This started off well, but I quickly realized if I wanted the chest to be able to drop slime balls, I would need to rework the slime ball system in order to work with these special types of slime balls. For example, previously I was checking an update if there were no enemies in the room, and if there weren't, to move the slime balls to the player, which obviously wouldn't work. So I changed the slime balls to not check in the update loop anymore and instead be added to a list, which upon killing all enemies in the room, all those slime balls would get to move, which is probably more efficient. I used twinning to animate the slime balls to pop out of the chest, which had placeholder art, but I ran into the problem that they were super slow for reasons I had no clue why. I was using vector 3.move towards, so I think it has something to do with the max distance delta value, but I read some code, copies of code off Google, and got things working. This also created this really nice move effect, which I think looks super clean. And I also set up this special item, which was the sword that's set to active when you open the chest for now. With most of the mechanics done, I created this chest and chest open animation. Some people said the perspective looks a little weird when I open the chest, but I didn't want to spend hours over the small things. I think it looks fine for now, but if it becomes a problem, I'll try my best to fix it in the future. I then set this up into Unity and made a bunch of other changes and tweaks that I forgot to record, and now the chest looked like this. In my opinion, I think it looks really good. I like how the slime balls jump up and move smoothly towards the player, and at the end, a special item drops to the ground. If you're wondering how I did this, I just cycled through a random amount of slime balls using tweening to move them up, and at the end, I used tweening again to move the special item out of the chest. Alright, moving on, I was brainstorming things that the game still needs, and I thought up of a way to fight the Slime King. I want the player to be able to fight the Slime King at any point in the game, though I wasn't sure how I should go about getting the player to the keep. I could have just had the player press a button, but that's all kind of lame, so I asked some people on my Discord server, and PolarCube had the idea for a river near the player's house, and the player could take a boat to get to the keep. I really liked this idea, so I started working on it. First up, I created this boat room, in which I called it For Now. I also added this green transition into the boat room, and I also made sure that the boat room will always be on the right side of the hub area every time it spawns. Now, I just needed a boat, and creating this boat was quite a challenge for me. I spent days messing with the perspective and trying to get things to look right, though with the help of my Discord server, I finally got it into a place that I'm happy with. I then created some animations for the player that took much longer than you may think to get looking right, and now I had the first version of the boat room set up. The player can walk into this room, press E, and he'll jump into the boat and start rowing away. But then I realized something. I completely forgot about the slime pet, so I increased the boat size and made some animations for the slime pet, and again, spent longer than I should have getting the slime pet to jump into the boat. With all that done, here's what it looked like. It's not always perfect, but I think it looks pretty good, and overall, I'm really happy with how this boat area turned out, though I'll make sure to add more art and spice things up later. Well, that's all I have to showcase for this video, so thanks for watching. And sorry if this video was a little off at parts, as I forgot to record some footage for certain parts of development. But the next video will be the 10k sub special, so thanks again for 10,000 subscribers, and we're almost at 11,000 subscribers. That's all I have to say for now, and if you like these videos, be sure to drop a sub or a like, as that would be really much appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.